Hey, you dorks, this is Gunnar Hansen, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you are listening to The Dorkening.
Hi, I'm Brian Johnson, and although you probably accidentally stumbled across it and have no idea why you're watching it, you are in fact watching The Dorkening.
Hello, this is Tom Kenny, voice actor. The voice of the Ice King on Adventure Time. And SpongeBob SquarePants. Meow. Oh, Gary the Snail, too. Hey, guess what you're filling your eye holes and ear holes with? The Dorkening! Oh, I love the Dorkening. Very popular in Ooh. And Bikini Bottom.
Hi, I'm Lou Ferrigno. You're watching The Dorkening. And you know what? You don't like me when I get angry, so don't get me angry. You better keep watching The Dorkening.
Hey guys, this is Felissa Rose, and you're watching The Dorkening.
Hey guys, it's Courtney Palm. We're shooting Death House, and you're watching The Dorkening.
This is Anthony Michael Hall, and you're watching The Dorkening. Stay tuned, my friends are going to show you what entertainment's all about, baby.
The Dorkening.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Rise and shine, my sinners. When Father Evil starts his day, he gets a little deadly. Deadly Grounds coffee has the richest, smoothest flavor you'll find anywhere. It's sinfully delicious. Once you go deadly, you never go back. Order yours at getdeadly.com. Coffee's so good, it's scary.
It is Tuesday. We are live, and this is another episode of Splash Pages, the comic book club. We have an awesome show scheduled for you today. We are finishing our Inferno storyline, and along with Chris's Spectacular Spider-Man, the Sal Buscema podcast, we'll be knocking out the rest of everything. But as always, speaking of Chris, we have Chris here.
Hey.
Hello, hello. Drew.
Hey.
Okay, so tonight we're discussing X Factor issues 37, 38, and 39, along with Uncanny X-Men issues 242 and 243. This is completing the Inferno storyline. So, published in 1989, written by Chris Claremont and Louise Simonson. Art was by Marc Silvestri and Walter Simonson. Editor was Bob Harris. Editor-in-chief, Tom Defalco. And the cover price for these books were between $1 and $1.50. So here's the scary stuff. Channeling my inner Sofia. Picture it, Sicily, 1989. George Bush, he's still president. The Oakland A's destroyed the San Francisco Giants in the World Series. Virtual reality is born along with the first World Wide Web server and the web browser. Some of the top movies, Weekend at Bernie's, Uncle Buck, Batman, and we were asked to be excellent to each other with Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. We stayed home and said, Norm, while we watched Cheers. Also caught The Golden Girls, Who's the Boss, Coach, Growing Pains, Night Court, and Murphy Brown. Gas costs about 97 cents a gallon. The average movie ticket was $3.99. And I said this earlier, we said hello to virtual reality and the World Wide Web, and we said goodbye to the Berlin Wall. Crazy. So X-Men is an X-Teams event that impacted every other comic whose hero was in or around New York City. There are two separate primary storylines. We just covered the X-Men one, which factored a struggle against Nasir and Madeline Pryor to regain Nathan Christopher Summers. Inferno is the first X-Book storyline to truly be a crossover in that the story actually continued from one title to another, from month to month, X-Men and X-Factor. And I know I'm going to get this name wrong. Sinister and Nasir independently manipulate Madeline Pryor, both for their own ends. Madeline makes a deal with Nasir to get her son back from Sinister and becomes the Goblin Queen. The transformation combined the Sinister's revelations about her origins and the events in her life, notably her abandonment by Scott Summers, all contrived to force her further into Nasir's arms as she vows to sacrifice her own son for the demon's plan. The X-Men and the X-Factor clash over Madeline, X-Factor mostly concerned for the child, and the X-Men mostly concerned about Madeline, whom they see as has wronged Scott. Into the confusion, Sinister throws the Marauders. Everything comes to a head when Jean Grey fights and defeats Madeline Pryor, rescuing Nathan, and at the end, combined teams fight Sinister, and the mansion is destroyed. This was dark, and this was crazy. What are your thoughts, Drew?
Well, thank you, Leo. As always, I'd like to point out that every time you do that summary, I'm convinced that the future ain't worth shit. My thought was that the second half, in my mind, was completely better than the first, because now that we got the ball rolling, this was just fucking nuts. I'm just making sure we get that mature 18 rating, kids.
Oh, totally.
No, it was awesome. You had a star amount of talent, and you concluded this story best, because for me, what made this story particularly real was, you had limbo and hell and all that stuff, but a lot of this was the pain. It was an identity crisis. It was Madeline Pryor saying, I'm a clone. I've been lied to. I've been rejected for the original. Screw this. I'm going to burn the world down just to prove my point. So this is probably the biggest existential crisis we've seen. Like, this is before, people could punch holes in reality over at DC. So this was huge. And like, I just finished reading it like 20 minutes ago, so I'm still reeling. I have no other words. Chris?
I mean, with issue 37, you have still, if you have the trade paperback for this thing, issue 37 of X Factor, there's still so much to cover. I mean, it's just a non-stop one fight after another with Madeline Pryor and the demon Nastasha, and then it culminates with the giant battle with Mr. Sinister and the Marauders as well, because he's kind of like somewhat of the mastermind behind her, but not really Inferno. I mean, the whole reason that Madeline Pryor is ever even a thing, which is why Sinister is involved in this, is because he had no idea where Jean Grey was, but he knew from something, probably one of the future psychic mutants or Destiny, because Mystique was banging Destiny at the time, that the son of Cyclops and Jean Grey would be the most powerful mutant on the planet, that he wanted under his control. But he couldn't have that if Jean Grey was dead, so he ended up cloning Jean Grey, which we found out previously. How Madeline Pryor got involved with the demon is very mucky. It doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. But she gets convinced that she needs to sacrifice her son, future Cable, in order to appease this demon. Now, in a did you guys ever read the What If?
No.
So and we'll get to it more in the spectacular stuff later on, and it's mentioned several times here with demons. Demons were eating people in this X-Men book. And in the What If, you really get to see how badly the demonic possession affects everybody. I mean, the X-Men look pretty ragged and kind of demonic. If you look at Wolverine's mask, it's slowly becoming part of his actual face.
Yeah, I did notice that. I just wasn't sure if that was stylistic, but yeah, now that I'm looking at it, you're right. It literally looks like it's becoming a part of him versus, getting ripped off of him.
And the only other person that could possibly stop Madeline Pryor is been turned into a mannequin, like Mannequin the movie, in a display case in a department store over an Excalibur, which they don't stick into this trade and we didn't cover. But I think it's either Sim or the demon Naasha transformed Rachel Gray into a living mannequin.
Wow.
Because she's the only person alive, with Charles Xavier trapped in space with a head injury and Jean Grey supposedly dead. Nobody know that she was alive and well running around with X Factor at this point for the last couple of years. Because she was an X Factor was kind of like a government agency pretending to round up mutants for the camps, but they were actually putting mutants into relocation programs to help them hide them. Rachel Summers was the only mutant on the planet that could possibly stop Inferno.
Well, now we know.
Yeah. Also, everyone's always asked, where the hell is Doctor Strange this time? I don't know.
Same place he was during Spider-Man or WandaVision.
No. Who knows where he was during WandaVision? I'm sure that will be explained in Strange's movie. But the What If actually explains where Strange is. I remember he got into an injury and he only has one eye right now. Because he's the one who, in the What If, ends up freeing Rachel from the department store mannequin.
Oh, okay. But, I felt like everything was really kind of wrapped up well, although I feel like it's certain things in it were very much like, if you weren't reading the other books, you couldn't just not, like, I had no idea how the demon suddenly got the transmode virus. Like, that was weird. Like, it's just suddenly it's like, oh, I have this thing. And I'm like, okay, clearly you do. I don't think it makes you any less demonic. Although what I do enjoy about demons is the same thing I noticed with certain ones, although that image is great. I don't know why, but the city, the buildings with little smiles, that's just some creepy shit right there.
Yeah.
Demons love to gloat. Or maybe comic book demons just love to gloat and, what happens when a demon laughs when you're making a deal with it. And it also just notice it just can't be an X-Men book without some nice butt shots. Right,
especially from Madeline Pryor.
Oh yeah, no butt shots.
I mean, you have Madeline Pryor holding, in her BDSM scantily clad pornographic looking costume, holding a chained up around her neck Jean Grey, who she is a clone of, and that says all sorts of Pornhub stepsister kind of stuff to me.
Also what I just enjoy, like the costumes just kept like if you look at Storm right there, I was like, yo, you are like one costume change short from being like Tina Turner in Mad Max 3, the Thunderdome. Like I noticed that. I was like, what is going on with the costumes here? And then especially that, Havoc, which this is like got to be the weirdest case of Eskimo Bros I've ever seen. Havoc and Cyclops over Madeline Pryor. Just then suddenly it's like she goes for a ride with him and then suddenly, I want you to be my Goblin King. And she just does the same thing to him. It's just, I have done your costume. I've given you more open chest and some showing off of the legs there, but everything else is fine. So it's just the weirdest eye candy ever.
The inclusion in Sinister in this, just for the ending to this entire story makes it feel like the Lord of the Rings ending, where there's just okay, they defeat the Madeline Pryor, and then they still have to defeat Sinister, and then they have to also still defeat Sinister and the Marauders, and Polaris is also bad, and then there's another ending, and Cyclops and Havoc need to kiss and make up, and it's it goes on and on. And by the way, the worst part of all is Jean still is with Cyclops after he admits that he only banged Madeline Pryor because, as he puts it, I married her because she looked and felt and smelled like you. Thanks, Scott. Knowing you two have a child together, I already know what you two did, and I'm a psychic too.
Yeah, it's just one of those really weird things that it's just no matter how much you want to be like, oh well, it's comic books and that stuff, it still just doesn't make a lot of sense, and it also doesn't put Scott in such the best way. I mean, it was already a complicated situation because again, the woman he loved was thought to be dead because of the whole Dark Phoenix thing. And then he meets someone, he finds love again. And not only does he find out that, his love is back, but that the woman he married, the woman that he had a child with, is her clone. So it's kind of like not cheating. It's kind of like what happens in porn, I guess, when you sleep with twins. So it's just one of those where I was like, guys, where was the end game here? Comics are always about, oh, we're building towards something. I was like, were you just picking on story elements out of a hat?
Is it even worse that on the island of Krakoa right now, Madeline basically sleeps like right down the hall from where he sleeps with Jean?
Pretty much. So it's one of those where you, especially with Krakoa, and I'm like, oh yeah, we've forgiven all of your transgressions and faults and whatnot. And some part of me is like, did we though? Can we?
I mean, they did it for Apocalypse sits on the frickin' Council of Mutants or whatever. Xavier put him there or whatever. Be like, he has a place. He's the oldest living mutant on the planet Earth. He has a place on this council, despite the fact that he's tried to kill us all. How many times?
Right, exactly.
But Apocalypse is pretty well reserved too. He's like, hatching his own scheme, but he's not gonna pull his bullshit.
And I still find it so amazing that this is the era where, especially if it's Chris Claremont is writing the issue, you always see that soap opera single tier.
Stop right there, Leo.
Yeah, look at that. That is just. I
know we were supposed to have a cosplayer on for this for one of these episodes of Inferno. She unfortunately had to cancel, but she has a costume looks just like that, and she has a spread where she's just lying on her bed wearing that same thing, and the costume is furled out around her.
What wonderful attention to detail. Let's go with that. But yeah, it just seeing things like this, it just really X-Men at that time were really very soap opera-y. They were the soap opera of Marvel. Very few teams, I'm sorry, the Avengers didn't have the kind of drama and weird shit going on that the X-Men did. God damn.
You're right. And the only drama that was going on at this time, because we've covered it before, is that I can really think of, and I wasn't reading every single every single Marvel book happening at this time, so I'm just going based on what is happening, lining up with other books. But Steve Rogers right now is currently the Captain, and John Walker, Mr. Decapitation himself, is running around as Captain America. So the only major drama happening probably was over in Cap's book, because Spidey just got married, no drama there anymore. And Cap has to deal with political BS orchestrated all along that is revealed to be by the Red Skull. That's not a spoiler for whatever's happening on Captain Falcon Winter Soldier TV show. We have no idea. There's only been 4 episodes. Regardless, that's not what we're talking about here. But you're right. X-Men had the most ridiculous drama. And by the way, the artwork throughout this entire thing by Marc Silvestri was, one of the big reasons why he went over to Image.
True story. And you don't want to know how much this stuff costs for him to sign. I know I've met him. But it's crazy, the scope of this whole series. But it also, to me, and I don't know, Leo, I don't know how much experience you have with X-Men and whatnot, but this to me kind of felt like it was almost trying to wrap up loose ends of the Phoenix story, especially she was created because a part of the Phoenix came back and I rejected it. And I was just but for me, I was just but they're still kind of trying to wrap up or edit that story today. So it almost feels like this attempt to kind of neatly put it in a bow is kind of for naught. So I don't know.
Oh, so
at this point,
it's such a goddamn headache, especially because it's happening right now in the freaking Avengers. The current Avenger title is dealing with the Phoenix again.
So at this point, how long ago did Jean Grey die as the Phoenix?
In comic book time or our time?
Well, yeah, sure, comic book time.
A year.
A year?
A year or two. They said, like, okay, I'm not even fucking joking. According to the Marvel trading cards that came out in 1990, so let me correct myself. It says at the bottom of Jean Grey's trading card that an alien entity absurd her identity and took her over for a year. So she was a Phoenix for a year. But between when she died in X-Men 139 and when she was found at the bottom of the river by the Avengers and Mr. Fantastic, it's got to be a couple of years at least in their time. In our time, it was like a decade.
Well,
they kept Jean dead for a long time.
I'm just trying to figure out the timeline. Like, how long did he wait after she died before he went after Madeline?
Like a week.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he left the X-Men in the famous issue where he leaves the X-Men. And Kitty Pryde joins officially, and it's like a couple. There's like Days of Future Past happens, and then a few stories happen, and then we get back to a solo Cyclops story, and he meets this pilot named Madeline Pryor, and they take a plane, they charter a plane, and then they encounter some magnetic interference, and that's a whole story.
He, like Leo, you'd think he is, but he's actually not joking. That's literally what happened.
Yeah,
Magnetic
they crash on an island owned by Magneto. He shuts off everyone's powers except his own, and Cyclops is able to walk around and see. And he's with Madeline Pryor. Magneto makes some comment being like, "Redheads, huh, Scott?"
Yeah. So Scott. So we want to. So the joke here is Scotty claims he didn't know. But apparently, he might have actually known.
Sinister altered her DNA slightly, so she didn't look exactly like Jean Grey, and that's the difference. Because the way she is drawn by John Byrne is not the same way he drew Jean Grey when she was killed off in issue 139.
Right.
She is drawn with a little bit more of a higher cheekbone, a little bit of an attitude, because she's always had a bit of an attitude. She stood up to Scott. She didn't put up with his bullshit. She was a pilot. She was an independent woman. She was her own business. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
she wasn't dainty little lady.
So it's just again, like just me personally, I enjoyed this story arc because again, it was one of the first, and admittedly, it's impressive at that time for being how dark it was. But. Is this is this my favorite of the X-Men stories that I've read? Admittedly, no, but I'm glad I read it because now I kind of see a lot of the context. Now I really understand Madeline Pryor. I really miss this team of X-Men because I think the lineup is great, even though the looks are, very dated. But the whole battle between the whole battle between X Factor and X-Men, which was clearly being orchestrated by Madeline, to me, like it just felt like Chris, you just said, hey, another fight scene, just some good old fashioned violence. That to me was more pointless than the fighting in Civil War II.
After rereading this, I had no freaking idea. And I had not read this since I was a teenager when I bought this trade paperback. Just how much freaking fighting is in this freaking book. It's just nonstop. I mean, you think Maximum Carnage was ridiculous, which it is, and we will get to it one day.
Wonderful.
One day. I mean, they're currently covering it over on Zach and Kelly's channel that they do Spider podcast on. So it'll be a couple of years before we get to it, but it'll be broken up pretty well. Also, the death of Sinister right here is kind of ridiculous because Mr. Sinister has like this weird body that can reform itself. It's not like Wolverine's healing factor. It's just like, he has experimented on himself so much. He is so far beyond human anymore.
That is such a cool image. I mean, look at that. That is just freaking dope.
And Cyclops is not afraid to kill.
Well, it wasn't in the X-Men animated series. Didn't their version of Sinister, he could only somehow be hurt by like Scott's eye beams? I seem to remember that.
Yeah,
Well, they talked about it in here as well. Is why is Scott frozen? He has to be frozen for a reason. Oh yeah, it's because he can hurt him. And then what was the whole thing with Sinister like being around when Scott was a baby? Like,
all right, so long story short, no, he wasn't around when he was a baby. When Scott and Havok were thrown out of the plane by their father, Christopher Summers, aka Corsair, leader of the Starjammers, and they were separated in the wilderness. Scott went on to live in an orphanage. Havok went on to live with his grandparents. They thought Scott had died in the crash when they got separated, and the orphanage was run by Mr. Sinister.
I thought they mentioned something like he was like around when Scott was a baby.
No, not when he was a baby.
No, but when he was a
unless
kid.
that's a retcon currently, but no, Cyclops and Havok had pretty normal upbringing up until the Shi'ar Empire invaded. Decided to UFO up mom and dad, and then as it was recently revealed in Legacy, Deken was basically trying to capture a species from different planets to impregnate them. So he puts Corsair in chains, rapes his wife, kills her, and then wants to see the galaxy with his children.
X-Men comics are just for your kids. Yeah.
Go read X-Men Legacy 1 and 2. They finally revealed the truth about the third Summers brother.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, I'm after this. I think I'm going to hold off for X-Men for a while.
No. Here's the thing. X-Men Legacy is a great book for the secrets of the X-Men universe. They have never frickin' finally revealed until now. The next one they're doing, the team of X Factor we see right here, Louise and Walter Simonson, return to X-Men for the first time in years with X-Men Legacy 3 and 4. And they're going to answer a long, unanswered question that was an X Factor. I forget what it is, but it has something to do with Apocalypse's ship they used to live on.
Yep. It's not gonna lie, it's pretty crazy. And again, like small things in the series I really enjoyed. Like, the little arguments, the quips, Wolverine kissing Jean. I was like, of course we had to have that fan service there. And then for me, there's certain things of this the fashion. Like why is Iceman have the equivalent of a fanny pack?
Oh, because his powers are out of control, and Beast developed that belt in order for him to control his powers. Someone said that's the gayest looking belt you've ever seen, and I said, well, you're not far from that, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, he looks like he's wearing a waist trainer.
Yeah,
shaping the ice.
Did you know that Iceman is an Omega level mutant?
Yes,
because he's the only mutant with that type of ability that makes him an Omega level mutant.
God, I hope he doesn't ever meet someone like Icicle from DC, or else he's going to have to forfeit the franchise. But it's just
they keep trying to make Iceman like a character with his own book. It just keeps every comic book store I've asked about Iceman and his book, they're like, nobody buys this, and we have gay customers that don't even want to buy this.
Wow. But my thing being is, let's just realize something here, guys, is that for every character who's a solo X-Men, for every Gambit, Bishop, even Deadpool, all of them, they there's going to be a few series that just don't work,
right? Right.
And that's about how the character itself, how they're written, and also what the market, the audience looks like,
Right. I mean, God, this was at a time where we're in the 1988, 1989. I mean, this is at a time that DC Comics could put out 4 fucking Superman books. That's how good the market was this time.
Right. And they'd all make some good money.
That's shocking. Yeah, they would. I think John Byrne would have just left, but this is when the craziness. This is when Mike Carlin took over as editor of Superman. Superman was really getting good, leading up to the decision to kill him off because of a TV show happening.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but wasn't there even a time when there were 4 different Spider-Man titles all at once, and there you go, 5. And they all did pretty well.
Now, technically, is there 5 if you count Venom, Miles Morales, Ghost Spider, and Silk, who all have titles, plus Peter has 2 titles, Amazing and Nonstop.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about Nonstop.
So, I mean, yes, I understand Miles is his own character, but that's still a Spider-Man fucking title. There would be no Miles Morales without Peter. There'd be no Silk without Peter. There'd be no Venom. And I don't even know if the Ghost Spider book is even going on anymore, but... and now we're going to do another giant symbiote miniseries crossover event coming up with the Carnage and Anti-Venom and Scream, Toxin.
Yeah.
But
so
didn't they just King Black's still going on, right?
Nope, it didn't.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
and it ended with the Flash Thompson's fist bursting up through his grave, being like, "Look, I'm back. I've only been dead for a couple of years."
Spoilers, I'm still reading it.
Oh my god, I can't.
Okay, seriously, for anyone listening, if you didn't know Flash Thompson wasn't going to fucking return.
Yeah. So back to what I was saying with this. Overall, I'm glad that Inferno happened because it did leave a lot of good things that became kind of crucial to the X-Men. I mean, but for me, I was just like, wow, this kid became Cable. No wonder his life was just screwed. Like, this is one of your earliest memories. You almost get sacrificed by your mom and her demon buddies in an SM costume while all of your supposed aunts and uncles like fought over you. I was like, yeah, that I was like, there's not enough therapy in any century that can cover this.
He even gets used as a shield at one point.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and in that What If story, Cable does get sacrificed, and like Wolverine becomes like the licking boy of like the Goblin Queen and is like fed babies to eat.
Oh my god. God damn.
Yeah, you see Wolverine like chowing down on a baby, and he's like licking his arm off or whatever. Yeah, Inferno, the What If Inferno was pretty effed up. It's only one-upped by what if Wolverine was Lord of the Vampires during Inferno. So they continue the Wolverine vampire story as if the Montesa formula is never read aloud by the Doctor Strange possessed Punisher, and the events continue on into Inferno. And we get to see vampire Jean Grey, Madeline Pryor, and all of their tight-fitting bondage gear, but vampire-ish. It's good stuff, especially if you're a big fan of the upcoming Loki TV series. I highly recommend reading those issues because they're going to tie into Loki.
Oh boy, it's just like it's like going to the after party for that blood rave in Blade. So
right, Leo, it's like 8:45. We should.
Yep, totally. Okay, so Drew, what would you rate this? Out of 5?
Because of everything, I think I'm just going to give it a solid 4. Because again, I was still entertained, but again, it could have been a little better. So I'm going to go with a 4.
Okay, 4 crowbars. Chris, you gonna rate this?
No, it's not my thing. Sorry.
Okay. Well, it's what we do here. So
he is objectively abstaining, sir.
Okay. I'm gonna give it 3.5 crowbars. I enjoyed the story, but I don't know. This really put me off from X-Men. I was never really a big X-Men reader to begin with, but there's just so much infighting between the groups. It's ridiculous.
There's other stories.
Yeah, I know you got to have fighty. And, definitely, Drew, maybe you can turn me on to another X-Men story when it's time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, 3.5 for me. So this concludes 4 splash pages, Inferno. And next week, we're going to be covering something either DC or indie. And, we'll pick one out and let you guys know. And stay tuned. We're going to be doing the Sal Buscema Spider-Cast. But as always, we do have a sponsor, Deadly Grounds. Here's a zombie talking about coffee.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly.
Use the front door!
Oh, they're so disgusting.
Okay, Chris, take us away for your Sal Buscema Spider Cast.
Spider time.
Welcome back to the Sal Buscema era podcast, the spectacular Sal Buscema era podcast, covering his run on Spectacular Spider-Man alongside Jerry Conway and JMD Mateus. We run it from the Return of the Sin Eater all the way up till the Clone Saga, and tonight is Inferno Part 3, and we're kicking off with Web of Spider-Man number 48. Before we get to our spectacular issue, because their two are tied heavily together. Web of Spider-Man issue 48 was published March 1989, written by Jerry Conway, penciler Alex Seviak, inker Keith Williams, colorist Janice Cohen, letterer Rick Parker, and editor Jim Scallerup. In this issue, Spider-Man is still recovering from his injuries sustained earlier in Spectacular Spider-Man last episode, bolts up and runs out of the Bugle thinking he is seeing demons after webbing Jameson's mouth shut. Eduardo Lobo and Gloria Grant are still trying to make their way back to the Bugle and are attacked by a forklift, and he kills it, making her fall further in love with him. Meanwhile, at the Kingpin's lair, he stops some demons from trying to kill the Arranger, all the while still obsessed over Daredevil. Jason Philip Macadale, the Hobgoblin, is not too pleased about what he has become, and after what he thinks he sees as a human-sized lizard, which it is, Kirk Connors, realizes only Spider-Man can possibly be responsible for what happened to him, because if Harry Osborn hadn't given him his dad's goblin formula, he wouldn't have had to make a deal with the demon to defeat Spider-Man. So it must be Spider-Man's fault.
Totally.
Moving on, Harry checks in on Aunt May and Chrissy to see how they are during Inferno, and MJ and her fashion crew are trapped inside the building, and they try to get out through the sewer. Hobgoblin finds Spider-Man and reveals his transformation during their battle and crashes into the sewer. MJ sees Peter and tries to help him, and she takes out Hobgoblin, and Hobgoblin crashes into a gas main and is killed, and we never see him again. Peter and MJ and the crew get out of the sewer and go back to Queens looking for Aunt May, who decides to go to New York to look for Peter. While Peter is over in Amazing Spider-Man 313, which we are not covering, Peter fights the Lizard and teams up with him temporarily to save his family, and Aunt May is safe and sound. But Kirk Connors realizes being the Lizard is too dangerous for his family, and we never see him again until the 30th anniversary holographic specials.
Of course.
Which is true. We don't see the Lizard again, actually, after the events in this issue, Inferno for several years. So it's actually after the first appearance of Carnage that the Lizard finally returns. The cover for this, I think, is fantastic. The Hobgoblin possessed, Web of Spider-Man, Inferno continues, with the Hobgoblin ripping off his mask.
Yeah.
What's funny, though, is that in the issue, he's not quite as demonic looking as he was at the end of the previous Spectacular issue, but he still puts his mask back on, which is unusual, but I'll go with it. I love it that Peter webs Jameson's mouth shut, and Kate Cushing, the currently editor-in-chief of the Daily Bugle, because Robbie is pending trial with what's happening with Tombstone, mentions that webbing does resolve in an hour.
That's true.
The shenanigans and darkness and all of the craziness that's happening in this mirrors exactly what's happening over in the X-Men book.
It does, but I have to be honest with you, Chris. I felt like I enjoyed this so much more because, yes, there was definitely the darkness, like you're dealing with the demons and the New York come to life and trying to kill you. But this was a little bit more personal, a little bit more contained. And I think that's just because we're seeing how it affects Spider-Man and his cast versus all of the X-Men and all of X-Factor and, you know, and for me, like there was so many great little moments here. I mean, I'm sorry, like I got to give it to Kingpin. I mean, the guy took out a demon with one punch. Like, damn.
And that's not the first time that's not the last time he would encounter any kind of demonic thingy like that. He was instrumental in helping out Doctor Strange dealing with the demonic dark force that Baron Mordo put over the city during the Secret Empire storyline.
Right.
Which, by the way, currently he's hiring Baron Mordo to help deal with like the Tablet of Time and Tablet of Life and the Tablet storyline and Kindred, the Harry Osborn demon, and stuff like that. So demons and Spider-Man are going hand in hand. Anyway, Hobgoblin crying is a little bit much. I also find it funny. So all the events of the Inferno storyline are happening within a day or two. Right. I don't know what it's like to fall in love. It's been a long time since I've fallen in love. But I guess saving your life from a runaway forklift trying to eat you and looking as good as he does, Eduardo Lobo has Gloria falling in love with him that quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, Leo, is that how you did it?
Is that how you made Megan fall in love with you?
You punched a forklift?
Yeah, that was it. No, it takes time.
It shows that Gloria is into bestiality because Eduardo Lobo is a werewolf. Moving on.
You always need to bring out the bright spots there, Chris.
I do.
Yeah.
It is also very funny that for whatever random shot we see the lizard crawling through the vines. And it's like, are you serious, Hobgoblin? All the time that you have been at least a mercenary jack-o'-lantern, you have never heard of the lizard or run into like anamorphic, creatures in the Marvel universe.
Well, and how big is the city for him to like randomly run into him?
Right, totally. Again, it's very funny. He puts the mask on, even though he is transforming into a demon. He still has all his hair, but by the time we get to his fight with Spider-Man, his hair is gone, and he's looking even aware.
Yeah, and also first things first about the lizard. I mean, I don't even know what park that is because that's Central Park. You could find anything in Central Park. Like that's a scary place. And then, like I felt the same way. He's turning into a demon. Personally, I would think it's even scarier. You just see that guy in the red eyes and whatnot, but he puts the mask back on as if, well, I got to keep that secret identity. No one's going to need to know the old demon face. And I'm just like, Massendale, go home. You're drunk. Like, God.
Yeah, it just gets worse for him. We will cover all of the Hobgoblin shenanigans when we get to them. Maybe not entirely on this podcast, but he does return. He will return in Spectacular, as well as another villain that will be coming up very soon. And he gets worse and worse and worse. Great stuff with Ghost Rider. Great stuff with Doctor Strange. Great stuff with Ghost Rider again. At least a couple of times with Ghost Rider. So, Mary Jane grabbing the guy's lighter and saying, he's like, oh, Mary Jane, the gas pipe will explode. And she's like, that's what I'm hoping for. I got to save my husband.
Yeah.
And this is why like Mary Jane is always considered to be, if not the best supporting character to Spider-Man, probably next to Aunt May, but one of the best supporting characters ever, even trumping, yes, Lois Lane.
Wow. I didn't know that there was that talk. I mean, I can kind of see it. I mean, like everybody here, all the people she's with are just being impractical and panicky and wimpy, but she's the strong person. And like, look, she's figuring, she figured shit out in the studio. Here she is in the sewer figuring shit out. I mean, she literally made a mini, I wouldn't say mini flamethrower, but she basically figured it out and accidentally helped defeat a Spider-Man villain, and she has no powers. That's pretty funny.
Right. And she's like, Peter, how the hell did he get so powerful? And he's like, I don't know. And, also with the ongoing saga of Christy wanting to bang, her cousin's husband. Really fantastic.
Ever since Kelly has brought it up, I can't unsee that. I'm just watching this redheaded little, I'm like, you sneaky bitch.
Yeah, she doesn't. She sticks around for quite some time, but that's pretty much it. And then it continues into the Amazing, as I mentioned. Now, the Amazing issue features Spider-Man very heavily fighting the Lizard, which is
Right.
fantastic because he has another title called The Spectacular Spider-Man, which he is not in whatsoever, which is, I think, a great way to be like, okay, so Spider-Man's over here dealing with the full-grown lizard. What is his other cast of characters dealing with? Oh, Return of the Living Dead, and Drew has the plot synopsis for Spectacular Spider-Man 148.
I totally do. Thank you, Chris. I've always like when I transition, I feel like I'm reading the news. All right, welcome to Spectacular Spider-Man 148. So this was definitely one of the best reads that I had of Inferno, I have to say, especially because being a horror movie fan, beautiful. So this Spectacular Spider-Man, issue 148, published March 1989. Writer Jerry Conway, penciler, inker, of course, is Chris's favorite, Sal Buscema. Then you got the colorist Bob Sharon, the letterer Rick Parker, and the editor Jim Salicrup. So this is the end, and it couldn't be a more fitting end to the nightmare that was Inferno. So we basically start off in a cemetery where we have some real Night of the Living Dead kind of action. The corpse of Ned Lead coming up, and then there's Betty Brant, and then Spider-Man and Gwen Stacy.
That's Gwen Stacy, not Betty Brant.
Oh, right. Sorry. I got excited, kids.
Betty is having the nightmare of seeing people come back from the dead. By the way, her and Gwen never have any interaction ever. One of the biggest continuity flubs they say that makes no sense is Gwen died before Betty came back into the picture.
So random. So you have all these corpses, and then you find out it's all part of Betty's having a nightmare because she's hanging out with Flash Thompson at his pre-Anti-Venom at his apartment. So Flash is trying to be, the good guy because Betty has been through a lot. I mean, Ned Leeds died. And essentially...
Do you know why... Hold on, backing up. Do you know why Ned Leeds is dead?
Yeah, it's because of the whole Hobgoblin thing. Well, it's because he was killed by... If memory serves, it was either he was killed... Yeah, the Foreigner. He was the Foreigner. He was killed, and then he was basically killed and he was kind of framed to look like he was the Hobgoblin by, was it Kingsley or Massendale framed him? I don't remember.
Kingsley hypnotized him. So the Rose, the Foreigner, and a couple other people that were aware who the Hobgoblin was would be led to believe that Ned Leeds is the Hobgoblin. And Ned Leeds was put in his place to talk and hang out and be buddies with Richard Fisk. Right. It was all retcon later on in Hobgoblin Lives 1 through 3, which came out, I'm not even joking, the week after the Clone Saga ended in the 90s. Roger Stern, writer of Superman, The Life and Death, was like, I want to do this retcon of fixing the Hobgoblin, who he really is, so we can bring him back. But I ain't doing it during that Clone Saga nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. No, he's very smart. Having met him, he's a very smart man. So back to his that. So you have Betty and Flash. They're basically worried about this whole thing. They're boarding up the windows. It really has that Night of the Living Dead vibe because it's hell out there. And both of them are wishing, Spider-Man. And of course, it's funny because, Flash, Spider-Man is his hero. Betty is not a fan of Spider-Man because she still blames him for the death of her brother Bennett years ago, or is it weeks ago, Chris? Time is very funny in comics.
Amazing Spider-Man right after he became Spider-Man.
There you go. But
so really a long time ago, really long time ago. He's still in high school when that happened.
So unfortunately for these two, being so cute together, they gain the attention of two demons who decide, hey, we're going to play with our food before we eat it, because as you know, demons are obsessed with eating people in Inferno. And as we've heard from Chris in another episode of What If, that they legit actually did eat people. So you have basically the horror movie mistake. You have the two characters are split up. You have Flash going on the roof. He meets Spider-Man. He's like, oh my God, Spider-Man, you're here to help us and stuff. And he's like, psych, I'm actually not here to help with shit. I'm going to get you killed and then I'm going to eat you. And he's like, Spider-Man, no, why? He said, because I can, because I'm Spider-Man, bitch. So you have that, because essentially you have him set up to be struck by lightning. And then you have Betty. She's still freaking out because she's just a nervous, neurotic mess right now. Because again, she's been through a lot in her life, and she lost her husband, who is her whole world and her total support system, until, hey, guess who's back? It's Ned as a corpse. Because why not? And he's haunting her, and Ned is, basically saying, but Ned is basically haunting her and saying all this stuff. And then she even supposedly, although it's not really said clearly, she gets visited by Ned's spirit that's basically Obi-Waning her and says, hey, I can't do shit to help you, but you can help you, girl. And that's her morale standpoint thing of getting her back together. So you have Flash fighting fake Spidey, evil demon Spidey, who that whole fight is totally weird because Flash pulls off the evil Spider-Man's face and you see like a demonic version of the Spidey mask, which props to Sal, because that was just so cool. Because it would have been so easy, and Chris, I'm sure you agree with me, it would have been so easy to show a demon face, but it was just, what a twist. So you have everything basically coming back to the apartment itself. You have Betty dealing with, not Ned, and you have Flash dealing with not Spidey, and they realize that they're not the real deal. So the demons basically give themselves up. They're like, oh, wow, we're going to now eat you. So Betty then decides to pull a totally boss kind of Ripley move, takes this gas heater that they've been toying with the entire time, throws it at the demons since it's already been broken, and literally blows up their entire apartment. Because why not? And so the moral of the story is, kids, instead of waiting for a hero to save you, be your own hero, kick demon butt. Bruce Campbell lives.
Couple things about the tombstones in this issue that was pointed out to me, and I gotta find it again. Ned's tombstone says 1955, born in 1955, died in 1986. Very topical, considering there's a sliding time scale in the Earth 616 of the Marvel Universe. And Ned would be 31 years old when he was murdered at the hands of the Foreigner in Spider-Man versus Wolverine #1, which is where Peter and Ned are on assignment for the Daily Bugle in Germany, and that is when Ned is killed, and that is revealed in Amazing Spider-Man 289. Gwen Stacy's tombstone, I don't know if it has a date on it, but Gwen doesn't come back, obviously, for other than the dream sequence. Spider-Man does have a tombstone because Kraven the Hunter buried him alive. And his tombstone was intact there for however long it was. I don't ever remember whenever they finally got around to knocking it down. By the way, it was Amazing Spider-Man #11 is when Bennett is killed. Doc Ock came back in issue 10, but he's killed in issue 11. Bennett is. And they also, Flash talks about the cult that Betty was part of. It's called a Cult of Love, and it ran in the Web of Spider-Man storyline. And Peter and Flash asked Peter to get a hold of Spider-Man because Betty has joined a cult because of the death of Ned Leeds. When Betty attended the pre-party for Peter and MJ's wedding, whatever that's called, she says, "Oh, don't worry, me and Ned will be there." And Peter's like, "Oh boy."
Oh man.
Flash Thompson and Betty would date off and on when she thought that Ned was cheating on her, but he was actually being hypnotized to be the Hobgoblin. Flash was there to console her. And then later on, when Flash had his legs chopped off, unfortunately, due to rescuing his unit in the war in Iraq, him and Betty would get together and bang.
Yep.
No joke. Betty, Marvel took the real life story of a Medal of Honor veteran who actually lost his legs in the war in Iraq over the last 10 or so years. I don't quite remember when it happened, and gave that story to Ned Leeds in honor. Flash Thompson in honor of him, and he was.
Oh, wow.
He's still alive today. He's doing well. He has mechanical legs now, but he was more than honored to have his story used in Spider-Man.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a big deal, and it's one of the better times that you can see real life inspiring comics. So.
Right. It's also very funny though that you wonder. I obviously the Scream anti-Venom issue has not come out yet, but with Flash returning from the dead, you're kind of wondering, does God or whoever's in charge of returning people from the dead give Flash his legs back?
I don't know. That's a good question, and that would definitely be
Venom and anti-Venom to walk because he was when he was Flash Thompson, he's in a wheelchair.
Yep, it's just. I don't know. That's around the same logic that suddenly we gave Barbara Gordon the ability to walk again after changing what happened in Killing Joke. So,
that because of an experimental microchip that attached to her spinal cord helps her walk, and that technology does exist today. It's extremely experimental. It's cost billions of dollars, but that technology that they gave Barbara to walk does exist, and people have used it.
Dope. But yeah, back to this story. It was just so nice to see both Flash and Betty in this early time, have a story to themselves that Spider-Man really plays very little part in. And it was such a great tail end because, like you said, Chris, we're always seeing how it affects, the superheroes and the people closest to them. But this kind of showed how this affects the other people. I mean, it's the same as that one issue where we had Joe Robertson fighting off dudes with chainsaws.
Right, right. And we're going to get really into Joe Robertson's backstory a lot coming up in 2 issues.
Absolutely. And it's just, this to me had so many great horror-esque moments, which I loved. And I thought Sal really got that nice appeal to. Like I felt like I was watching. There were certain scenes in it that felt very much Night of the Living Dead. The crying girl against the door while the zombies tapping, the boarded up windows. Though we can't go outside, it's hell out there.
Right, and Ned Leeds is still dead as of today. He never came back, thankfully. However, he did get cloned. Or his body got reanimated into clone body from the clone conspiracy shenanigans piece of crap Dan Slott storyline that Kelly and I both hate. But there is something Ned has to tell Betty that the clone knew that has still yet been revealed, which is interesting.
Oh, okay.
What that is possibly I have our child. No, I don't know. It's obviously. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But anyway, Betty Leeds, Betty Brant, whatever her name is currently, has never died, by the way, and brought back to life. Just
she's still going.
Yeah, she's still alive, never been killed off. Flash, he got killed off by the Norman Osborn, the Red Goblin, in Amazing Spider-Man number 800.
Yeah, and it's the other thing being what I loved is that this is such a funny, and simple way that they stopped the demons, and you took out 2 with a little portable space heater. I mean, honestly, it felt like, to me, looking back on it, Ripley wasn't really the greatest analogy. It felt like John McClane taking out all the terrorists one by one with just his own brains and good old-fashioned MacGyver ingenuity. And it was awesome. And, because the demons did exactly what demons do. They play on your fears. They try to make you doubt yourself. They take the vices of things that you're afraid of or things that you love and call out your fears and all of it. But I guess because of maybe the time or how it was written, nothing here felt really cliche. It was all very tight. Nothing felt wasted, and that's something I love about the way Conway and Buscema work together. Every panel mattered. Every moment was well coordinated, and to me it felt like we were watching a It really felt like we were watching a movie. Like I could easily have seen someone shoot this frame for frame, and it would be a really intriguing little mini Spider-Man horror movie.
Definitely. And they talk about in the letters page that everyone's asking questions about the annual, which took place prior to Inferno, and asking about the revelations of the Gwen Stacy clone and what that all means. And we will actually get into all of that with our next episode in 2 weeks with Zach from the the Spider Clone podcast, which has just ended, where he covered every single goddamn Clone Saga tie-in, everything.
Oh God, good for him.
So the ads in this issue are the same as they have been before. I love this controller. Warning: may be fatal to your competition. EPYX controller. It's good for your Apple, IBM, Amiga, Commodore, Atari, Nintendo, and Sega.
How?
Wow! Just hearing that made me feel old.
Yeah,
one of the letters in here.
Hold on. How?
Don't ask me. Oh, it's got multiple. I don't know. I have to see if my roommate has it because he has every single Atari game ever made. It's called the EPX 500XJ, and I'm not even joking. He has every single Atari game ever made.
Yeah, but you'd have to have an adapter for each system. Okay. No,
yeah. By the way, Ned gets a mention in the letter pages. Ned Leeds took Gwen to a doctor who subsequently tests proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that her mystery lady was just someone else made up to look like Gwen, biologically otherwise. The second Gwen was identical to the first, down to her fingerprints. I do love the fact that all 4 letters printed in the Spectacular Spider-Man letter page are asking about the Gwen clone and Carry On. And they're like, oh, yeah, what about that? Oh, yeah, what a mystery. Ooh, maybe. We'll possibly get to it. And then it says, next issue, what about Carry On? Enough said. Because they had to clean up their continuity errors involving the Spider clones and Carry On until the next time they decided to mess up the continuity. But I give it to the writers. They did it in 1 issue. And when we get to it in 2 weeks, that was the issue of Spectacular Spider-Man I had to own as a kid because I didn't know what was going on in that cover. And reading it, I just started getting into the Clone Saga and was wondering what the hell is a Carry On, and it blew my mind, and I can't wait to cover it. So that will be in 2 weeks on the Sal Buscema era podcast, Spectacular Spider-Man. You can find me on Goth Girl Horror. We just put out a new episode, Hackslash issue number 5. And we have issue 6, 7, and 8 coming up in about another week or so. And you can also check out Vlada, a Dracula Tale at your local comic book store. That's Entertainment, Laughing Shield, or coming up soon, Harrison Comics and Magic Parlor in Salem, Massachusetts will have copies. Or go to Vlada, a Dracula Tale on Facebook. And next time we record, I actually have a huge announcement for the next comic book that I'm working on. But this podcast will also have a guest. Like I said, Zach Joyner from the Spider Clone podcast saga. He's actually Kelly's co-host on Make My Day, the Spectacular Spider Girl podcast. And Leo and I and whoever else will be joining us, Drew, I'm assuming, will have a guest on for the ending of Falcon Winter Soldier.
Sweet.
Yes, Catherine Schuler, Mark Grunwald's widow, will be on with us to talk about Mark Grunwald's life and a little bit about John Walker.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, guys, the point being is that there's a lot coming at you, everybody, and we're definitely bringing everything back from the dead, just like we did in this issue. And wherever we're going, let me just tell you right now, there are no demons, I think.
Right. Where can everyone find everyone else? We're going to go.
Oh, yeah. I'm Drew Mallow. I'm on Instagram, GhostbusterMan1984. I'm a writer for Screen Rant. You can look me up, Drew Mallow Screen Rant. And Leo.
Yeah, just Google Leo Pond. You find a bunch of stuff, but more importantly, follow these awesome people and head on over to The Dorkening. Over 30 shows on a network, a lot of awesome stuff. And we have some awesome books we're going to be covering here on Splash Pages as well. And with that, we'll catch you guys later. Bye.